You earn because of us. It's only fair we take our share. That was my mom. And Dad? He didn't even look up from his tea when he added, 80% to your sister, 20% to us. You get a roof and our blessings. I blinked. No shock. Just silence. Because when the people who raised you treat you like an ATM, the real betrayal isn't in what they take. It's in what they never gave.
Hi.
I'm Harper Quinn. And if you think this story is about greed,
Stay tuned.
because it's about liberation. What happens when the child they train to obey becomes the adult who stops financing their delusion? I was 27, paying for everything from my sister's skincare routine to my mom's Pilates classes, and my own rent
Didn't exist.
because I wasn't allowed to move out. That would embarrass the family. You're the eldest. You sacrifice. That line was used every time they needed a new iPhone, or a last-minute trip to Napa, or when my sister crashed her third car. So one night, I quietly transferred the last paycheck. And then, I deleted every auto debit. My mom called me in a panic. Your sister's tuition bounced. I said, guess she'll finally meet her professors. My dad texted, electricity bills overdue.
Pay it now.
I replied with a gif of a candle. And then I moved out. Took a small studio above a bakery. Smelled like bread and freedom. They told the family I was lost. That I'd abandoned them. Good. Let them tell their version. Because mine was just getting started. And 6 months from that night, when their house went dark and the bills stacked high, they remembered the one child who always paid in silence. And that silence was about to become very, very loud. I thought they'd move on. Thought maybe, just maybe, they'd figure it out. Budget. Downsize. Ask for help.
But no.
Instead, my sister went on Instagram Live crying over her cruel sibling. Mom commented hearts. Dad shared it in the family group with a caption. She's changed.
No.
I hadn't changed. I'd just stopped bleeding for people who handed me the knife. They tried guilt. Voice notes of prayers. Texted old baby photos. Then came the pity plays. My BP's high, Dad said. Sleepless nights, Mom added. All while sipping lattes on their balcony in matching robes I paid for last Christmas. But I said nothing. Silence became my weapon. 3 months in, they cracked. Aunt Melissa showed up at my work. Red lipstick, gold bangles, and a speech ready to go. You're humiliating your parents. I smiled.
No.
I'm teaching them economics. She stormed out. Then came my uncle. You're making us all look bad. I leaned in. No. Your dependence on me is what's embarrassing. By month 4, my dad sold his Rolex. Mom had to cancel her facial membership. My sister got a job, lasted 5 days.
Too hard, she said.
Reality was finally knocking, and it sounded a lot like, no more Harper. Then I got a message. Just a single text from my mother. Are you happy now? And I almost replied. But then I remembered the night she told me. You're only worth what you can provide.
So I didn't write back.
Instead, I booked a solo weekend trip and toasted to the peace they never taught me I deserved. Back at their house, the lights flickered. Literally. Because the electric bill wasn't paid. And they still hadn't learned what happens when the backbone finally walks away. They thought I was bluffing. Thought I'd come crawling back the moment I missed family dinner. But dinner didn't taste like manipulation in my new apartment. It tasted like pasta I made for one. Quiet.
Cheap.
And peaceful. On the 5th month, Mom called from a new number. I answered without thinking. Sweetie. She started soft, gentle, rehearsed. I waited. We're struggling. Your sister needs therapy. Your father's blood pressure. Has it ever occurred to you? I cut in. That I might need therapy too? Silence. She hadn't considered that. Because I wasn't a daughter to them. I was an income stream with emotions they didn't budget for. You've always been the strong one, she whispered. No, I said. I've just always been quiet. And that silence was over. I told her about the nights I cried in my car after work, how I skipped lunches to cover their debts, how I once sold my laptop just so my sister could go to prom in a new dress. She didn't say sorry. She said, "We didn't ask for all that." I hung up because that sentence was my closure. 2 weeks later, my dad showed up at my doorstep. Gray hair messier than usual, hands shaking. He held out an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Our bills. We're behind on everything." I didn't take it. Instead, I looked at the man who raised me on guilt and control. And I said the words he used on me when I was 16 and needed help. "Figured out. You're not a child." He flinched, and I closed the door gently, not out of anger, but out of mercy. Inside, I made tea, turned on a jazz record, and smiled for the first time in years. Because healing didn't look like revenge. It looked like no longer rescuing people who drowned you every time they swam. And my parents? They were just now learning how cold it feels to be left in the shallow end. They tried the cousins next. Suddenly, I was getting calls from people I hadn't spoken to in years. One even said, "Family means forgiveness." I laughed quietly. Family, to them, meant free labor. Family meant bank transfers with guilt attached. I didn't budge. Then came the final straw. My sister posted a long note on Facebook, a public pity letter dripping with crocodile tears. She left us in our darkest hour. Her selfishness broke Mom's heart.
She's cold.
Just like her new apartment, that post got over 300 likes. People I'd grown up with shared it. Not one of them called me when I was working double shifts. Not one offered help when I skipped my insulin doses to afford groceries for them.
But now?
They all had opinions. So I posted one thing. A photo. An old receipt from 2 years ago. $1,250 for my sister's broken iPhone emergency. Captioned, "Remember when silence funded your convenience?" No names. No yelling. Just the truth. And that single post got more reactions than hers, including a private message from a journalist friend. "This story deserves a wider lens. Want to talk?" That night, I said yes. Not to fame, but to truth. She published the piece 2 weeks later. The cost of being the responsible daughter. It went viral. Emails flooded in. Women.
Men.
People who gave everything to families that drained them. I wasn't alone. And for the first time, I didn't feel crazy for walking away. Then came another message. From Dad. Just one line. "You humiliated us publicly." And for the first time, I realized the thing they feared most was not losing me. It was the world seeing who they really were, without me there to polish the picture. They built their lives on my silence.
But now?
Now my voice was louder than their lies. They thought silence was my weakness, but it was my sharpest blade. Because I didn't shout. I didn't scream. I exposed softly. After the article went viral, the dominoes fell. Their friends stopped calling. Invites stopped arriving. And my parents? They were finally seen not as victims but as architects of emotional theft. Mom tried damage control. She called my work pretending to be a concerned mother. Said I was unstable. That the article was a cry for help. My manager put her on hold, then walked into my office and asked, "Want me to block her number from company lines?" I nodded. The next week, I received a brown envelope at my door. No name. No return address. Inside, a handwritten letter from my dad. No manipulation. No threats. Just this. "We didn't realize how much we depended on you until your absence cost us everything." And taped beside it? A check. $1,700. The same amount I once loaned him for a car repair. Money I never saw again. He was trying to pay it back. Trying to undo the past with currency. But healing doesn't come in envelopes. And forgiveness isn't bought. It's earned.
Slowly.
So, I returned the check. Not out of spite, but out of clarity. I wrote one line on the back. I didn't want repayment. I wanted parents. Then I moved again. Changed my number. and started building a life with boundaries thicker than walls. Because when people treat your worth as disposable, you don't bargain for love. You walk away, and you let their loneliness echo the truth they never listened to. They raised me to sacrifice, but I raised myself to survive.
And now?
Now I was doing something far more dangerous. I was thriving. Winter came. A neighbor I barely knew knocked on my door, holding a tin of cookies. "You're the one from that article, right?" My daughter sent it to me. "We read it together." She smiled. She finally understands why I stopped going home for holidays. That night, I cried. Not from sadness, but because being seen, truly seen, felt like air after drowning. I kept writing.
Started a small blog.
Just thoughts, reflections, stories of invisible daughters who carried invisible burdens. It exploded. Publishers reached out. Brands offered sponsorships. And suddenly, I wasn't just surviving. I was earning. On my terms. The same family that mocked me for being just a clerk now saw me on national interviews. My sister? She posted a passive-aggressive tweet. "Funny how trauma is trendy now." But here's what she didn't understand. I didn't build my platform on pain. I built it on truth. And truth, when told without fear, becomes power. Months passed, until one day, an unfamiliar email popped up. Subject line: "Your parents are losing their home." I stared at it for minutes, then clicked. It was from a lawyer. Apparently, they defaulted on the mortgage, the one they refinanced after I left. The same house where I washed dishes, paid half the bills, and slept on a mattress while my sister had a queen bed and a Netflix account in her name. They were about to lose it all. The lawyer asked, "Would you consider helping them avoid foreclosure?" I sat still. The old me, the version they molded, would have transferred money before reading the full email. But that version? She no longer existed. Now I had a question of my own. Did they miss me? Or did they miss what I did for them? Because those two things aren't the same. And when I replied, my answer was simple. Let them learn what it's like to live without their lifeline. The news spread fast. Cousins messaged me with fake sympathy. Aunts sent voice notes like missiles. Family doesn't abandon family. But when I was scraping together $40 for groceries while my parents bought my sister designer shoes, no one said a word. Now that I wasn't useful, I was heartless. Still, I didn't post.
Didn't rant. Didn't justify.
I just kept building. My blog turned into a book deal. My platform turned into a movement. People from all walks of life reached out with stories of being used, drained, discarded. And I answered every message. Because I knew what it meant to feel alone in a room full of people who claim they love you. Meanwhile, my sister went live on TikTok.
Tears.
Mascara running. She's watching us fall apart, and she doesn't even care. I used to call her my best friend. The comments weren't what she expected. One woman wrote, "She probably carried your weight too long. Let her rest." Another added, "Maybe she stopped calling because she was always the one dialing." And the final blow? A clip of her crying was stitched with my old blog post, the one titled, "When they only loved what you gave, not who you are." It hit 6 million views in 48 hours. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. People weren't just listening. They were remembering their own versions of me. And that's when it happened. A letter, handwritten, slid under my door. From Mom. Not asking for money. Not asking for anything. "Just want you to know, we're sorry. We see it now." I held it in my hand. It didn't undo the years. Didn't erase the bruises made of guilt and silence. But it was something. A crack of light in a long hallway of shadows. Still, I didn't reply. Because sometimes, the only apology that matters is distance. I didn't return. Not for Christmas. Not for birthdays. Not even when they sent a photo of the house, empty, half-packed, with the caption, "We lost it." I stared at it like I used to stare at them, waiting for some version of love that wasn't conditional. But now I understood something they never taught me. You can miss someone and still not go back to being their lifeline. A few weeks later, I spoke at a conference. Theme: The Price of Peace. I stepped onto the stage, not as the forgotten daughter, but as the woman who built herself out of the pieces they tried to control. And as I looked into the crowd, I saw dozens of faces nodding, tearing up, seeing themselves in my story. That's when I realized this wasn't revenge. It was resurrection. Because the best revenge is not watching them fall. It's rising and never asking them to catch you. Months later, my dad sent one final message. Your sister wants to reach out. Can she? I read it once, deleted it, then sat in the quiet of my own home, surrounded by warmth,
Peace.
and